why do we need a stabilizer?
Well, the flow on every front wing will be, as it leaves the front wing, directed slightly downwards. What that creates from the vectors, from the force vectors, is a pitching moment. So imagine you're sitting in a pool and you have the front wing in front of you. You just let it glide through the water. Every front wing will always nosedive. It will do like a circular rotation. To prevent that, you need the stabilizer. Your front wing will create vertical lift upwards. Your stabilizer is also a wing, but his force acts downwards. So these two will be in equilibrium. As the front wing will start to nosedive, the stabilizer will prevent that.
So we know stabilizers are important, but what's so special about the S series of stabilizers?
Well, in general, as you can see, our stabilizers are always mounted at the top of the fuselage. That means they are outside of the flow of the front wing. So the front wing will create turbulence as the flow rips off. And if you position the stabilizer at the bottom side, you run the risk that he will catch the turbulence from the front wing. Hence, we're mounting them on the top of the fuselage.
The other benefit, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the rear stabilizer is closer to the surface of the water. So sometimes when you get really close to the top of the surface of the water, you almost like a warning bell or an indicator. As your rear stabilizer comes out, your front wing stays just fractionally under the surface of the water, which is, for me, I find really handy sometimes, really helpful sometimes as an early indicator in case I'm getting too high and about to breach. So tell us about the construction of the S-series stabilizers.
All our stabilizers are made in the pre-packed carbon construction, so these are really bulletproof. Especially on stabilizers, it's getting important. You want a stiff stabilizer. You don't want to have any flex in your stabilizer because ultimately that is going to cost you performance. Our carbon pre-packed construction allows us to make a relatively thin profile while at the same time remaining the rigidity of the wing, because that's something that's very important for stabilizers. If you go too thin and you don't match the material properties that you use to the application, you get a very flexy wing, which ultimately will cost you performance.
So why do we have a range of different sizes in the stabilizers?
As we increased our front wing range, we need to match the same with the stabilizers. There's a fine balance. Certain front wing sizes require a certain stabilizer size because, as explained earlier, the lift force of the front wing needs to be matched with the stabilizers. If you have a bigger front wing, you will require a bigger stabilizer eventually as well.
Can you talk us through the different sizes?
Yes, so we have our smallest stabilizer is the S208. It's a quite high aspect ratio stabilizer. Then we have the S210, the S270, and our biggest stabilizer currently is the S320.
And what's the S270 ideal for?
The S270 is basically your go-to all-around crossover stabilizer. It works in a variety of conditions, for a variety of disciplines.
And that's in our additions, isn't it?
Yes, and that's why we put it in the additions.
Nice. And the 320, what do you use the S320 for?
The S320 would be something for a novice rider which requires a little bit more stabilization of the whole system.
Or maybe a bigger rider, sort of pumping.
Or a bigger rider. It would be something definitely for the bigger wings. So if you have a 2200R, the S320 would be a good match with that front wing.
Awesome. And the S210, what sort of customer is going to use the S210?
The S210 is a little bit more sporty, so if you go down the wing sizes, you want to prefer also a smaller stabilizer just to be more maneuverable.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally found, I know that S210, a lot of the riders are using it for really high speed winging, where they really want to reduce the drag and increase the efficiency. Yes. The S210, for me personally, it's fantastic for towing on the big waves or with wing foiling, just going really fast, but still staying in control. How does it compare to the S208?
So the S208 has a higher aspect ratio than the S210. If you can see that here. It also has a little bit of a thinner profile thickness, has less drag, is faster, and a little bit looser in the setup. To recap, the bigger sizes in the stabilizers will have more stability, but also a little bit more drag. The smaller you go, the faster and looser the stabilizer will feel for you.
We strongly recommend going out and testing them if you can. Each one has a unique and different feel, and we love playing around with all the different rear stabilizers in combination with different wings. It really does make a big difference, so please don't underestimate how important a rear stabilizer is.